the true power of Hades has finally been revealed alongside his long-awaited backstory. Today I'm talking about Ragnarok chapter 61.2 and chapter 62, which potentially builds up the climax of this fight. If you don't know, the leaks for chapter 63, this month's chapter, come out in around 3 days. And if I had to bet, it's either going to end this coming chapter or the one after that. So we may know the ending of this fight in a few days. Of course, welcome to the Mysterious Weeb YouTube channel. If you enjoy Ragnarok content or really any other fighting manga, maybe hit that subscribe button, it's greatly appreciated. So the power of Hades comes mainly from his blood. It's described as a special substance that when spilled on a divine weapon, the weapons actually absorb it and become even more powerful. However, of course, this absorbs his life force, and if it keeps on going too long, he will eventually die. So once again, as I've been saying for a few months at this point, I do believe this fight between Hades and Qinshi Wang will actually be a draw. In all the other chapters of the fight so far, we've been getting subtle hints about the possibility that Wang could end up getting himself killed, and now we have a way for Hades to do the same. So potentially a double suicide is possible. Regardless of how it actually ends, I do think this fight is going to be a draw still. Another thing to mention that adds to Hades being very tactical and an intelligent fighter is how he covered his whole body in blood, so he's able to now counter the air blast attack that's been pretty much dominating him for the majority of the fight. Now he can see it coming due to the blood above his skin getting the impact first, so that's pretty cool. He's able to counter a very powerful technique from Wang that, according to Ares, was his most dangerous move, but I do think something even more crazy is going to come out next chapter. Another thing that we need to talk about is when Hades began powering up his weapon, Wang comments on his ki, as you can see that with his special eyes, showing the weapon and his whole body getting a buff. So it's possible it's not just his weapon getting a buff from the blood, it's his whole body as well. So maybe as a whole he's faster and stronger. And we see this when he attacks Wang. Wang's able to react to it still, but due to the overwhelming power, he's able to crush through his heavenly hand and actually cut off some of his fingers. So again, I would like to say they're around the same when it comes to how much damage they're sustained in the fight so far. But due to Hades now being amped and Wang being on the downside, I would potentially say that Hades has the advantage in some regard. Now regarding the actual character of Hades, his whole thing in this fight, his drive for winning, isn't solely to get revenge for Poseidon's death against Sasaki in round 3. It's as the eldest Greek brother, he shall not be defeated, and we get this explored on in the flashback, which is pretty engaging throughout. I think it's probably mid to high end when it comes to the backstory so far. I quite enjoyed it, pretty badass, and we did get more insight to the lore of this world, in particular regarding the Greek gods. Throughout the whole series, all the gods and humans have kind of been given a title. For example, we have Thor as the strongest Norse god, we have Zeus as the supreme god, Shiva as the strongest Indian god, stuff like that. We learned that Hades is viewed as the god who can be relied on the most, so the most reliable god potentially in the series, which I guess is pretty cool. Not another thing just going, oh, he's the strongest or something, or the most terrifying of that. He is the most reliable, which is respectable. His flashback is centered around the war between the gods of Olympus and the giants, taking place shortly after Zeus's flashback, where we saw the war between the current Greek gods and the Titans, with Zeus defeating his father Kronos and becoming the supreme Greek god. This giant event came about due to the primordial goddess known as Gaia, who pretty much created all these giants to get revenge for the old school gods pretty much being overthrown in the tournament that ended with Zeus defeating his father. But the way Hades was able to lead this battle with this legend is that during the time all the Greek gods were dealing with the giants, Tartarus, the prison of the gods, had the Titans from the previous battle actually escape, and this prison is actually in Helgrim, the place Hades rules over, which resulted in Hades not telling anyone, going alone and defeating all of the escaped Titans alone in this massive bloodbath. and that's how Hades got regarded as the most reliable god. And another thing that was pretty cool this chapter is we see the moment where Poseidon actually had given Hades respect. In the whole Poseidon flashback and his whole fight, we learned that he didn't really have respect for any other gods. He's considered the gods of gods, stuff like that. And that's, again, why he actually attacked Adamas, as he didn't have respect for him for his whole life. But in this flashback here, after Hades did what he did, we have Poseidon calling Hades brother, with Hades revealing that that's the first time you've ever called me brother. So in my opinion, that's when Poseidon actually showed respect to Hades. And I guess potentially the only person Poseidon respected in this series from what we know, which is pretty crazy. Most likely alongside Zeus as well, of course. Something pretty funny that was shown in this chapter is a painting of that big war. And we see like a little scribbled out face on it, with that being Adamas, as we know after Poseidon killed him, or at least we thought he killed him. His history and what was known about him was pretty much wiped away, and we actually see this visibly here, which is pretty funny. But cutting back to the present outside the flashback, we actually see Adamas returning to the other Greek gods, so he's no longer chilling alongside Beelzebub, which is a little bit unfortunate. I always want to see more from Beelzebub. I'm hoping he actually fights next. But as he returns, we learn that the only one who wasn't aware that Adamas was still alive regarding the Greek gods is, of course, Ares, which is, as expected. I shouldn't be surprised. And that Poseidon was also aware that Adamas was still alive, which is something I wasn't too sure about, but it does make sense that he was aware. However, Hermes also points out if Poseidon truly meant it, there wouldn't be a shred of Adamas left. So again, building up Poseidon, which pretty much most likely puts Poseidon above Hades due to him actually taking so long to call him brother and show him respect. At least that's my perspective on that. But the reason Adamas was able to survive is that Hades ordered Hermes to pretty much take him to Beelzebub, and Beelzebub transformed his body into his current state. And he has now taken up a new name, the god Adamantine, which of course Adamantine means unbreakable, which is pretty funny considering what Poseidon did to him. I still get the sense that Adamas will potentially be fighting in the tournament, which I'm personally not too thrilled about. Or I should say Adamantine will be fighting. We'll have to wait and see, but I think a few switch arounds or more fights could be added to the tournament. It all really depends what happens in this coming fight, whether it's a draw or the gods or humanity wins. We'll have to see what happens. But that's pretty much everything to really talk about regarding last month's 2 chapters, that they did take a while to both get translated. Can't do much about that. But yeah, stay tuned for the leaked video in a few days. Join the Discord. Check out the other stuff in the description if you want. And of course, shout out to the Mad Lads who support the channel via the Patreon. But yep, that's it guys. Peace.